The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I opened it. White, formal, gold-trimmed, my name written in elegant cursive but missing the warmth of familiarity. My brother's wedding invitation. At first I smiled. Part of me, the part that still hoped, felt that tiny stir of excitement. It's been years since we had a real conversation. Still, I thought maybe this was a step. Weddings, after all, are about family. I figured this meant I mattered enough to be invited as one. I stared at the date, the venue in Boulder, Colorado, and the carefully curated itinerary. Fancy, expensive, and yet something gnawed at me. That old, restless feeling I got whenever I was around them, like I was tolerated, not welcomed. Maybe I was overthinking, but it didn't feel like a reunion. It felt like a test I hadn't agreed to take. Then came the phone call from my cousin Lisa. We were catching up. Small talk, wedding excitement, the usual. Until she said something that didn't sit right. "So, are you doing the flowers for the ceremony? Aunt Linda said you're handling all that." I blinked, confused. "Wait, what do you mean?" Lisa paused. "Oh, you didn't get the vendor list email?" Vendor list? I hung up a little too quickly and dove into my inbox. There it was. Sent 2 days after the invitation. Subject line: Confirmed wedding vendors, family help contacts. I opened it, and there, between the caterer and the DJ, was my name. Floral design, Madeline, bride's request via family. No title, no Ms., no thanks, just a line item, like a piece of equipment. I sat there for minutes, frozen. Was this real? I'd been invited, not as family, but as free labor. It hit like cold water down the back. Not surprising, but still cruel. Memories flooded in, setting up tables at birthdays while my brother opened gifts, doing chores while the others played, being introduced as the responsible one, not the loved one. This wasn't about flowers. This was about being invisible. Again. I called my mother that night. "Hey, Mom, I got the wedding invitation. It looks really beautiful," I said, careful not to sound accusatory. "Oh, good, honey. We're so glad you'll be there." "I also got the vendor email. It says I'm doing the flowers?" She laughed. That high-pitched, dismissive laugh that always made me feel like a burden. "Well, you've always had a knack for it. We figured you'd want to help. It'll save us some money, too." I let the silence hang. My heart thumped in my ears. "Did anyone ask me?" Another laugh. "Madeline, it's not a big deal. Don't make this about you. It's your brother's day." And just like that, I wasn't a guest. I was a function. I didn't cry. I clenched my jaw, stared at the ugly wallpaper in my kitchen, and whispered, "Sometimes the people closest to you mistake your kindness for availability." She didn't answer. The call ended with a shallow, "See you soon," and a dial tone that felt like a slammed door. I sat there, remembering all the birthdays where they forgot the cake was supposed to have my name, the piano recital no one showed up for, the college graduation they said was too far, and now a wedding where I'd be arranging roses instead of receiving a hug. I needed to talk to someone who actually saw me. I called Grandma. No answer. I tried again the next day. Voicemail. That wasn't like her. She always picked up. Always. A lump formed in my throat. The last time we spoke, she told me, "Your silence is your power, but it can also be your prison." Back then, I didn't understand it. But now, sitting there with my hands trembling and my breath caught between fury and heartbreak, I got it. They mistook my silence for agreement, my helpfulness for servitude. Maybe it was time to stop being quiet. Maybe it was time to become visible. That night, I sat in my apartment, lights dimmed, the tea on the stove gone cold, a half-finished bouquet on the table. Its petals had started to curl at the edges. So had I. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply decided I was going to that wedding, not to arrange lilies, not to fluff centerpieces or check the boutonnieres. I was going to stand there, not as a daughter they used, but as a woman they'd underestimated. And if there were more lies hiding under the surface of this picture-perfect wedding, I was going to find them. Because the best revenge isn't anger, it's showing up as your full self. I wasn't going there to serve. I was going to see who else had been lying to me. I pulled into the driveway just before 3 in the afternoon. Same old house, fresh paint, manicured lawn, and a new porch swing that looked like it belonged to someone else's life. The yard was trimmed like a magazine cover. Not a blade of grass out of place. But that house, it still felt cold, clean, but hollow, like it learned to smile without meaning it. I brought a small gift for Galen, handmade wood cufflinks I'd carved years ago and never gave him. I wrapped them the night before, not out of love, but habit. I figured he'd probably never wear them. Still, some parts of me hadn't let go of the rituals. The front door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, apron on, all warmth and scripted pleasantries. "Oh, you made it. Come in, sweetheart." The word didn't fit. Inside, it smelled like pot roast and lemon polish. Family voices echoed from the living room, laughter too loud for the jokes being told. I stepped in, feeling like I'd just crossed into someone else's story. Sabrin met me in the hallway, heels clicking, smile too wide. "So glad you're here, Laramie," she said, like a politician shaking hands. Then she handed me a stapled sheet. A task list. "Here's what we mapped out for you. Floral setup, coordinating guest arrival, plus some decor placement. You've got the touch." I didn't react, just nodded. My fingers curled around the paper. I glanced around. No one else had a sheet. Not Galen, not my cousins. Just me. I folded it and slipped it into my purse. Didn't need to look twice. I knew what this was. I'd been here before. Christmases spent wrapping everyone's gifts. Barbecues spent manning the grill while the others played cards. Helping my dad move apartments alone while Galen flew in 2 days late just to toast champagne. This wasn't a favor. It was a pattern. Families don't always divide love equally. Sometimes they divide labor unequally. Dinner was loud, not with conflict, just noise that excluded. I was seated near the kitchen, next to the youngest kids who barely knew my name. The grown-ups took the long table, wine glasses clinking, voices rising with stories from ski trips, investment gains, corporate promotions. No one asked about my business. No one even mentioned it. My parents beamed at Galen like he invented electricity. Then Sabrin piped up, swirling her wine. "Some people are just naturally more organized. Born planners. Makes weddings run smooth." Everyone chuckled. I smiled, tightly. I didn't say a word. Because saying something would have made it worse. My silence wasn't agreement. It was ammunition. Being quiet doesn't mean you agree. It just means you're picking your battle. After dinner, I walked to the hallway to grab my coat. Sabrin followed. "You're so good at taking care of things," she said, her tone sugary. "You really missed your calling. Should have gone into hospitality instead of whatever it is you do." I looked at her, really looked. There it was, calculated kindness, not cluelessness, a game, one she thought she was winning. She didn't wait for a reply, just tapped her nails on the banister and walked off. So it wasn't a misunderstanding. She hadn't assumed I'd help. She'd arranged it, crafted it, maybe even pitched the idea as a family bonding moment. That was the moment something in me locked into place. Not rage, not pain, strategy. I spent the next hour watching. Who met my eyes? Who didn't? Who laughed too quickly? Who stayed quiet when Sabrin spoke? I was building a map in my head. That night, in the guest room with the window that stuck like it always did, I lay on top of the covers, clothes still on. My phone buzzed. It was Whitney, my cousin, the only one who ever texted first. "You up?" I called. Her voice was hushed. "You weren't supposed to know. About the list. You were never officially on the guest count. Your name was just under support." Support. I closed my eyes. Whitney continued. "Grandma tried to bring it up. She pushed back, but no one listened. So that's why Grandma had gone silent. She'd seen it, tried, got ignored." I stared at the ceiling fan, counting the rotations like heartbeats. 3 days. That's all this wedding had left to humiliate me. Unless I rewrote the script. If they wanted to see me as a problem, I'd become one, with purpose. They handed me their plan with a smile. What they didn't know was, I was about to rewrite the ending. I arrived at the venue for rehearsal just as the afternoon lights softened behind the mountains. The big wooden doors loomed, polished, impressive. I walked in carrying nothing but my hands empty of hope. No one noticed. I found a corner behind a pillar and watched. The laughter, the photos, my family posing in bright dresses, Sabrin's arm around Galen, Mom's smile directed at them. I held a bucket of flowers that needed arranging and placed each bloom with care. It felt like I was working on someone else's picture. I wasn't part of the frame. They never planned for me to be. That phrase echoed in my mind. Sometimes, you're not part of the picture because they never planned for you to be in the frame. The scent of lavender and baby's breath hit me when I knelt to fill a vase. Sabrin walked past, arm brushing my shoulder, laughed with my mother. "You used to be dramatic, remember?" I heard it, louder than I wanted. Memories sharp as glass. Age 13, climbing a tree in Grandma's backyard, trying to show off, losing grip. I fell. Broke my arm. They saw me crying, but afterward said I was too much, that I always made scenes, that I needed to calm down. I remember sitting in the ER, holding my arm, waiting. Their laughter later felt like salt. I adjust a centerpiece in rehearsal now, and I realize, even then, they saw me merely as someone who could be ignored. My pain wasn't valid. During a break, I sank onto a folding chair outside, pulled my phone from my pocket. There, among old texts I never replied, was a voice message from Grandma Relia, dated 3 weeks ago. I hadn't listened until now. Her voice trembling, she said, "Sometimes truth hides in plain sight, and wills don't always die with the people." Her voice cracked at that last word. I typed her name, stared at the recording, heart tightening. It hit me, clearer. Grandma saw something I didn't, knew something deeper. This wasn't just about being unseen, it was about something they tried to bury. I stood and walked back inside. My hands were shaking as a cousin greeted me. "Oh, isn't that one of the vendors?" She smiled, thinking it a compliment. I froze. The words wrapped around me like ice. Vendor. My face heated, but I didn't correct her. Words had been stripped from me so many times, by accident, by design, that today I let her mistake speak volumes. When people erase you in public, they've already erased you in private long ago. Late that night, alone in the room that smells of old linens and dust from the rehearsal decorations, I pressed my phone to my ear. Whitney's voice was low. "They're hiding something about the estate." Grandma tried to fight it. My breath caught. I closed my eyes. This wasn't just oversight. It was legal, silent theft of what was meant for me. At that moment, clarity landed. My anger hardened into resolve. I didn't walk out. I stood in the center of the empty ballroom, the chairs stacked, the air stale, and stared at the place where I should have been seen, not as helper, but as daughter. I woke with sunlight spilling through the curtains, the same light that had filtered through Grandma's window when she taught me that quiet strength counts more than noise. I dressed with intention. I chose a dress not too fancy, not vendor cheap, but one that said I belonged. In the kitchen, Mom and Sabrin were already moving among dishes and iced tea. Sabrin praised Mom loudly, "You always find the best people to handle this stuff." I smiled when Mom thanked her, nodded when they asked what time I'd start with the florals. They didn't ask how I felt. I said, "I'll be there early." The porch swing creaked outside. It was early wedding day in Savannah, Georgia. It smelled like magnolia in bloom. I remembered Grandma's words. I wanted them to see me. Sabrine handed me a soft green polo shirt and apron, labeled Beaumont Events. "You know how these staff people are dressed," she said, a bit too sweet. I didn't laugh. I looked at my reflection, apron over the dress. The uniform robbed me of context, erased distinction. Family isn't meant to dress you in name tags. I thought of birthdays long ago. Birthday dresses, satin and lace, and at the end, cleaning up crumbs while everyone else danced. The weight of being the girl who tidies up. My chest burned. I wanted to tell her, They don't trust me to be seen. They trust me to serve. But I clipped on the apron and said nothing. I let her mistake stand. Guests arrived. Aunt Vivian, lipstick perfect, asked me, "You work with Sabrin now, right?" I forced calm. "Yes, I'm helping coordinate." Her brow lifted. She smiled, then turned away. It hurt more than anger. I carried buckets of flowers, handled masks, held the door for people I'd known since childhood. Invisible. That flicker in Aunt Vivian's eyes, that hesitation when I wasn't included, it felt small but heavy. When people mistake you for help rather than family, respect becomes earned, not given. I breathed through a smile, my arms stiff. They didn't see, but I saw. Later, I found a thank you card on the mantel. Elegant gilded edges, elaborate script, dozens of names. One read, Vanessa. Not my name? My gift, my sweat, my help, wrapped in someone else's identity. Sabrin laughed as she stirred coffee. "Oh, honey, I always mix names up." Mother shrugged, saying, "It's a card, not a big deal." My hands trembled. I folded the card, unfolded. I thought of Grandma's handwriting, how patient she was, how every stroke mattered. Rage flickered, hot and sharp. I closed my eyes. This ends soon, I thought. They cannot keep twisting truth this way. Dinner gathered us all. The sun was setting. My father rose to toast. Warm voices, wine glasses catching light. He raised his glass to Sabrin first. To Sabrin, who made so many behind-the-scene decisions run so smoothly. Then he looked at me, hesitated, but called me Laramie, our wonderful helper. A single word, helper. I froze. Laughter bubbled around the table. I swallowed hard. Nod. The room glowed with expectation. They thought the kindness they gave me was permission to keep me small. I didn't speak. I let the silence serve me. I would not be helper forever. I would be seen. They treated my kindness as silence, but silence is running out. I woke before sunrise, that quiet ache in my chest already pulsing. The day felt like waiting for a trap to drop. I slipped into a neutral dress, soft gray, neither vendor cheap nor guestly elegant. My reflection caught in the mirror, and for once, I didn't want the reflection to hide me. There was a calm in knowing I would show up, but today I decided I'd not be background noise. Sabrin texted me early, asking if I could help with the bridesmaids' timing. I read it, let it sit. I didn't reply. I didn't want to fold myself into someone else's schedule anymore. Grandma's voice replayed in my mind. If they erase your name, remember your worth is not written in theirs. It echoed louder than any apology I might never hear. Between wedding arches and tablecloths, I wandered to the edge of the aisle, adjusting a ribbon. That's when I heard Mom speaking soft to one of Aunt Linda's friends. Her tone was almost tender, but words cut sharper than steel. "She's becoming too entitled lately. We gave her enough. If she makes a scene today, we'll cut her off." The kind of threat wrapped in concern. I froze. My fingers closed around the ribbon until the fabric bit into skin. No sound left my lips. Anger didn't spill outward, but inside I felt every cut, each invisible line drawn around me, marking me as someone who could be dismissed. They didn't plan to include me. They planned to erase me. Sabrin floated into view in her gown, bridesmaids trailing light laughter. She looked over at me, teased, "Laramie, we thought you went back to your Airbnb. You blended in so well earlier." A few voices laughed. A bridesmaid, not sure, said, "That's not funny." Sabrin shrugged, glancing at her own reflection in glass, then said loud enough for others, "I'm just saying, she knows how to stay in the background. That's a gift, honestly." My ears burned. I nodded, the gesture automatic. But inside, a fierce flame lit. I stood tall, though stiff. I wanted to speak, to say, "I refuse to be background." But I didn't. I carried buckets and masks, stooped to adjust petals, forced thank yous, and "of course I will" from my lips. Invisible work, invisible recognition. In a quiet moment, I slipped into Grandma's room. The door cracked open. The space was untouched, dust motes dancing in sunlight, her old desk, the scent of lavender sachets. I knelt and opened a drawer. There, among yellowed stationery, lay a thick manila folder stamped Estate LR. My hands trembled. I pulled it out gently. Inside were notes, handwritten drafts of the will, lists of assets, and part of it marked with my name. A worn letter. Laramie, I knew they wouldn't tell you. But I did. And that's enough. My heart hammered. I snapped photos, pressed the folder back exactly as it was. I returned to the bustle outside, folder weight hidden in my bag, spine straightened. No excuses, no hiding. Back at the bridal suite, with final preparations buzzing, I breathed slow. I packed up the vendor apron, hung it carefully on the door handle. I touched the fabric as though touching a promise. I wrote a letter, not to them, but to myself. My hand moving across the page. You were never background. You were the entire story. They just refused to read it. I folded it tight. I packed my bag. I left my room with no fanfare. The garden lights flickered as dusk settled. My steps sound against the walkway. They may not see me walk away, but they will feel the absence. They never imagined I'd walk away with more than silence, but I carried the truth, and that changes everything. I woke before dawn again. The room was quiet except for my own breathing. I sat on the bed, staring at the vendor apron hanging by the door, cleaned and ironed, motionless. I didn't touch it. Coffee brewed somewhere behind closed doors. I checked my phone. No messages from Sabrin, no reassurance from Mom. Only reflections of Grandma's folder in my mind, drafts, names, promises scribbled in ink. Outside, staff were setting up lawn chairs, arranging centerpieces down the path to where the guests would walk. My parents' voices drifted through windows, rehearsed laughter floating in. Galen's fiancé barked orders like she owned every moment. I felt the ache once more, welcome unasked, voice unheard. Sabrine found me next. She held a small box, gift wrap tied with satin ribbon. For you, she said. I thought you'd like this. I opened it. Inside, a bracelet with a small charm, Beaumont Events. She smiled that practiced smile. Then she added, if you want to stay involved, please stay in your vendor role. My chest tightened. It sounded like kindness, but it was a line drawn. Inside, I felt betrayed. Flashback. Grandma once told me, sometimes love is not forgiving what was taken, but refusing what is tossed at you. That memory kindled something inside me. Clarity. I forced a smile, accepted the bracelet. My skin prickled, though. I felt paid to remain silent, paid to accept the small light in place of the fire. While hanging place cards, I slipped my phone out and opened the folder photos from Grandma's room. I glanced around. Marlo, my cousin, saw me holding the images. Estate, LR, printed on one. Her eyes widened. Someone behind her gasped. I didn't hide. I placed it on a small table where others could see. Sabrin stopped mid-step. Radley moved quickly toward me, tried to intercept, but the seed of exposure was already sown. Guests murmured. I felt the shift. The air tasted different. I felt no apology exactly, just the electricity of seeing them notice. Later, at dinner, the lighting soft, candles flickering. My father stood. Clinked glass. To Sabrin, he said, voice warm, who kept every detail running behind the scenes. Then he paused, pointed to me. And to Laramie, always so useful. His hand shook slightly as he raised his glass. The word useful echoed in the room. I stood. The chatter stopped, faces turned. My voice rose, steady. I am not just useful. I am family. Shock cracked through the table. Sabrin's smile faltered. My father's gaze fell heavy. I sat. No applause. But something changed. Quiet. Undeniable. Night came. I returned to my room alone. I folded the bracelet from Sabrin, packed it into my bag. I folded my work portfolio, organizing designs, labeling each piece clearly under my name. I stood before the mirror, touching my own face. I said aloud, "You made them see you. That's victory." Sleep came slowly. The weight in my chest lifted just a little. I didn't need to hide any longer. They said I was useful. Tomorrow, I'll make it impossible to ignore me. I woke to the sun slicing through my bedroom window. Early, clear light. I felt my heart tight, knowing today was different. I declined Joe's offer to help set tables. What I needed wasn't help, it was visibility. I gathered the photos I took from Grandma's folder, smoothed out sketches of designs I'd carried in my portfolio, practiced what I would say when words mattered. Sabrin texted, "Hope you're ready." I didn't reply. Silence felt like power. Grandma once told me, "Silent strength is loudest when truth is spoken." I breathed that in, let it settle in my bones. Today, I would speak. At the entrance to the venue, I overheard Sabrin with Galen and Mom, loud enough for others to hear. She really thought her designs would matter. A laugh followed, gentle but sharp. My chest tightened. Past rejections unspooled in my mind, art shows ignored, clients choosing others, that internship I lost because you need more polish. I stood back, watched faces. I didn't lash out. I let the insult linger. I observed. I recorded. I felt the steadiness rising in me. No more disappearing. I walked toward the photo wall, rows of family pictures, laughter frozen in frames. There, a design I made hung with a name tag. Vendor by Beaumont Events. My design, my touch, but someone else's credit. Guests swirled by, heads turning. "Pretty work," someone said. "Love the vendor's effort." I stepped forward, gently, firmly. I replaced the name tag with Laramie Crow Designer. The room paused. Sabrin's lips tightened. A cousin whispered, "Oh, wow, that's her." My palms were sweaty, but I held them steady. I looked at the name under my design and felt validation. I didn't shrink. I claimed it. Later, social media glowed with images from the wedding entrance. Sabrin and the family, captioned, "Thankful for everyone who helped, especially the vendors who keep it all together." My name nowhere. My work tagged to assistants. It stung. I opened comments, supportive voices, some harsh. Then I posted, "Proud to have helped. My name is Laramie." A small uproar online. Finally! It's about time. Sabrin sent me a private message. Must be nice to want so much attention. I didn't respond. My silence wasn't submission, it was assertion. As sunset painted gold over trees, my father stood for a toast. Candlelight flickered, voices gentle but weighted. He lifted his glass, first for Sabrin, then said, "And to Laramie, who built much of what you called this wedding." My chest tightened. He paused. I stood. I couldn't stay silent any longer. "I'm not a helper, vendor, or invisible name on a post. I'm your daughter. I am the designer who built much of what you call your wedding." The pause after my words stretched. Sabrin's face lost its composure. My father's eyes flicked, shock, maybe pride. I sat. No applause, but change, quiet, undeniable, shifted beneath the surface. They said silence suits me. But I decided to make noise with truth. Morning broke soft through the oak trees, the breeze carrying the smell of moss and damp earth. I woke well before anyone else. My heart was heavy from nights full of silent resolve. I pulled on the neutral outfit I had laid out. No gentility, no vendor tag, no servant's mask. Slim skirt, crisp blouse. I tucked the photos from Grandma's folder in my pocket, their weight grounding me, whispering I had every right to carry them. Sabrin greeted me with coffee and a polished smile. I accepted the cup with a nod. My posture was closed, but inside, something fierce. Not revenge exactly. I deserved this moment, to be seen as myself. Radley stood at the podium as guests settled. His voice dripped warmth. "Sabrin has been the backbone of this wedding." Light applause, knowing smiles. I stepped forward. I raised my hand, interrupted the flow of words. I held up the folder photos. I showed the original will, Grandma's own handwriting, clear as truth. My voice even, firm. "These are not vendor designs. They were mine. Grandma intended it this way." A sharp silence followed. Sabrin paled. My parents' eyes locked on me. A ripple ran through the crowd. Twist thought foiled. The hidden will became visible. I demanded not pity, but recognition. I am not invisible. Marlowe, who had stood behind me, nodded, eyes bright. Small hands reached out in support. Whispers, nods, affirmation. Power shifted that moment. Afterwards, the air crackled. Sabrin stuttered apologies. Radley fumbled with his words. Elowin's face burned bright in the crowd. Some guests cheered softly. Others turned away. Sabrin tried to reframe it. I did what I thought was best for the wedding. I raised my voice. What was taken must be named. I laid out what was erased. My name, my designs, my rightful place. Inside, I thought, they may try to rewrite these moments again. But today, I spoke louder than all their silences. On phones, in texts, social media stirred. Some guilt, some celebration, some disbelief. But people saw. At long last, I walked to the photo wall. My fingers brushed against the old tag, Vendor by Beaumont Events. I stepped forward, carefully removed it, placed a new tag below the design. Laramie Crow, designer. The crowd stopped. Tears, gasps. Sabrin's lips parted, then pulled back. Ivor Winthrop, standing near the edge, handed me the officially returned folder. Grandma's belongings, the handwritten draft of the will in my name included. I read the note aloud. You are the legacy. The words echoed quiet across the heated faces. Legacy. They lost control that moment. The tag replaced, the name reclaimed. It mattered more than applause. At dusk, the ceremony wound down. Music softened, lanterns flared. I stood apart, watching people approach, apologies awkward, some whispered, others, unexpected, sincere. Sabrin slipped off into the shadows. Radley lingered, his eyes wet. Elowin turned away. I held my ground. I thought, I didn't win their love today, but I won my truth. That counts. They thought they'd buried my voice. Tomorrow they'll have to rebuild, knowing it exists. The light that poured through my window that morning wasn't like the one before. It was softer, not as urgent. For once, I didn't wake up bracing for a fight. I poured myself a cup of coffee. No texts, no noise. Just the creak of the old floorboards under my bare feet. I sat with that silence, and this time, it didn't feel like something to escape. I thought back to everything that had gone down at the wedding, the speeches, the folder, the faces. It all played in my head, but it didn't pull me under. No replaying comebacks, no shame spirals, just a steady kind of peace. I glanced at my phone. Messages poured in. Some apologies, a few long paragraphs from distant cousins, even silence from folks I thought would lash out. That silence didn't bother me either. I opened the vendor list email chain one last time. My name, buried in small font. I hit delete. Not out of spite, just done. There was no fire in me for that anymore. Only space. Grandma once said, sometimes you don't get closure, you get clarity. That's enough. She was right. Later that afternoon, a knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Radley stood there, suit wrinkled, expression unsure. In his hand, a yellowed envelope. This was in the attic. I thought you should have it, he said, holding it out like it weighed more than it did. I took it carefully, recognizing Grandma's handwriting immediately. My breath hitched. I didn't know about this, he added. She wrote it months before she passed. Inside was a letter. Grandma's words, her tone, so familiar. She wrote about her fears, her hope for the family, and then she named me, said I saw things others didn't, that I carried her intentions better than anyone had. She called me her echo, her continuity. I wiped my cheek without thinking. Radley reached into his jacket again and handed me her brooch, a delicate piece she'd always worn on Easter Sundays. She left this with me, said I'd know when it was time. He looked me in the eyes then, something real behind them. I should have spoken up a long time ago, not just at the wedding, years ago. I let them talk over you because it was easier. I didn't rush to forgive him, but I nodded. Some truths didn't need an argument. A few days passed before Elowen called. She asked to meet at the old greenhouse. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. When I arrived, she stood already inside, arms crossed, looking at the long dead flower beds. I never meant to hurt you, she started. We did what we thought was best. I let the words hang, then said, calm and even, you didn't just forget me, you erased me. She flinched, but didn't deny it. I didn't know how to raise someone who didn't mirror me, she whispered. I looked around the space where she once taught me names of herbs and weeds. Your love came with conditions, I said. I've unlearned them. She didn't chase me when I walked out. That told me everything. Weeks rolled by. I launched my studio, Crow Light, just a small room at first. Quiet. Mine. My first client wasn't someone I knew, a young couple who messaged me online. We saw the story, they said. You reminded us what legacy means. I framed Grandma's brooch in the studio, a simple frame beneath a quote, speak, even if your voice trembles. People started to notice, not because I shouted, but because I stopped hiding. My circle now, chosen, not inherited. One warm evening, I walked past the venue where it all went down. Empty, chairs gone, lights off. I stood for a moment. No ache, no sting, just release. You can outgrow pain, I said to myself, just like shoes too tight to wear. Then, on impulse, I dialed Radley. You up for helping with the next show? He didn't hesitate. Yeah, I'd like that. We're not the kind of family you see in the movies. But it's real. It's a beginning. And just like that, the silence became space, and space became mine.